Welcome to this episode of Your Property Business. This is the video podcast that help you get the most out of your own property business. And today in this episode, I'm delighted to be speaking to Ben Reynolds from Your Virtual Marketing Team. Ben is a successful property investor, an entrepreneur who started and sold and grown various businesses in his time. He's had a successful career in global marketing agencies, looking after well-known household brands. And now, bringing all that experience together, runs a business called Your Virtual Marketing Team that is set up to help small, medium-sized property companies stand out from the crowd in this increasingly busy marketplace. So we'll bring Ben to the screen and say hello. Good afternoon, Ben. How are you?
Hi, Chris. Yeah, I'm very good. Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Thanks for coming. I'm looking forward to having a discussion with you. Just for I've introduced you very briefly and just skirted over a few things. But can you just tell me a bit more about yourself and how you've got to this point and the various things you've done in your career and entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah. So I have rebranded myself. So I look and sound like a middle class person, but I'm actually not. I'm from the East End, and I was brought up in Essex. And my family were very poor, and so we did everything ourselves. And then after school, I went to university. I got a degree. I did a business degree, which was incredibly boring. My girlfriend did mechanical engineering, which was incredibly boring. So at the end of university, we said, no, we're not doing that. We're going to go and have some fun. So I went and got a job at Saatchi & Saatchi. She became a fashion buyer. Okay. So our lives really changed quite a lot. At Saatchi & Saatchi, I rebranded myself as a successful middle-class person. Just by pretending to be that is what I became. But the property journey started before that. So most people say, in my late 40s, I realized I couldn't retire on the income I wanted. And so I needed to build some income, and property looked like the way to do it. My property journey started when I was about 5, when my family had no money. And so my dad and my uncle did everything themselves. So at the age of 5, I was stood behind my dad, passing him screwdrivers, watching how to fit a socket, how to replace the element in the kettle, how to do really basic stuff like that. So I started learning about property at a very young age, very practical stuff. And then at the age of 9, me and my dad installed the latest technology, which was called central heating.
Okay.
So we installed a central heating system into our house. I'm not a plumber or anything, but I was only 9, but we did that. And then the following year, my cousin Greg and I dug the foundations for my uncle's house. We dug them by hand. And then 3 years later, it took 3 years to build the house, we were putting the tiles on the roof. And we did everything in between. So
at the age of 10 to 13, you built a house?
Not on my own. The whole family did it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we built a house. Yeah, we built a house. So I was very practical, to be honest, and that carried on throughout my teenage years. So when I was 14, 15, 16, most people were saying, tidy your room, do the washing up. My dad was saying, can you replace the light fitting in the kitchen? Can you put a new TV aerial on the roof? And so it was very, very practical upbringing. So I had a lot of experience of hands-on property. So I finished school. I did my A-levels. I went to university, and I'm not a tradesman, but I'm a competent DIYer at the age of 19 or whatever it was. So I got a job working for a student landlord. Okay. And we did maintenance on the houses. It was in Nottingham. He had 52 houses, as I recall. Yeah. There was me and another guy that I met on my course, Ted. And we would do all the maintenance on the houses. And then during the summer holidays, we would redecorate all of the houses. So in 6 weeks, 3 19-year-olds would redecorate 52 houses in 6 weeks. And put the kitchen cupboard doors on, stop the leaking washing machine, we do everything. So we would tear through these things like there was no tomorrow. So I had a lot of experience. And this landlord, he would give us the all the work to do. He'd pay student rates before he passed it on to the professionals to keep his costs.
Okay.
He said, can you go through the paperwork for me? Do you know anyone that can go through all my receipts, go through all the paperwork, put it into some kind of sensible place before I can get to the accountant and pay the accountant's rate? And I said, yeah, my girlfriend can do that. She's she's doing mechanical engineering. She's numerical. We can do that. Yeah. And a few days later, my girlfriend said to me, you need to sit down and go through these numbers. This is the blueprint of property. So without realizing it wasn't deliberate, but without realizing it, my employer gave me all the information I needed about how to be a landlord.
It's really interesting, these stories that people tell me, that there's always seems to be a moment that something clicks, and it happens at various times. And it feels to me that was maybe your moment. Think, okay, that's interesting.
Absolutely, yeah.
It might be a book people read. In this case, it was a practical experience of working with a landlord.
There's 3 moments. Yeah. I'll come on to them, the other 2 later. Yeah, but that was the first one. That was when I went, yes, property. Yeah. So I'm in the first year of university. It's a 3-year course. So I then said, okay, so this is going to work for me, property. I was running a small business at the time. Like a lot of property people, I'm fairly entrepreneurial. I don't really like having a boss, so I tend to do my own stuff. At the time, back in the 90s, I was running a vintage clothing company.
Okay.
And I said, okay, I need to up my game. So we were buying and selling vintage clothing, selling them in markets to students who were going to 70s car wash nights. So we upped our game. We made more money. I took out a student loan, and in the second year of university, I bought my first investment property, which was a Victorian semi.
Because that's another sort of stumbling block I think people have, either mentally or actually in reality. How do you get your first one? So yours is a combination of working hard, saving hard, entrepreneurial cash flow, and a loan.
And a loan, and I might use my credit card. Yeah,
okay. So hook or by crook, you got this thing.
So what I did was I said I have to be in this game,
right?
And then I worked out how to be in the game.
That's interesting. That's interesting. You made the decision to make it happen, and it
I made a decision to make it happen. I bought the property. I had to rewire it. Fortunately, my uncle was an electrician. He's the guy that owned the house that we built. So he'd taught me how to rewire already. So I rewired the house, replastered it, and redecorated it, and then let it.
Okay. Did you live in it at that point, or was that totally?
I lived in it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Primary residence, no capital gains. Yeah. So even at the age of 19, 20, I knew I had to live in it because I'm not paying 40% tax on the profit. Yeah. So I did that. I finished university, let that out, and as I said, we didn't want the boring jobs that we thought we did when we went to university. So we moved to London, and London's a different market to Nottingham. So you're not buying a 3-bedroom house in London at the age of 23, 24. So I looked around and I said, okay, I still want to be in this game, but I don't have a deposit. So what am I going to do? So I looked around. I was working. I had some income. And so I bought what I could afford to buy. And I think that's something that a lot of people at the beginning of their property journey forget, is that you don't have to buy a house. Mm-hmm. So I bought a parking space under a block of flats.
Okay.
And I let it out. So I rented it out.
The principles are the same, right?
It's exactly the same. exactly the same. So I bought a parking space. I paid £7,000 for it. I rented it out. I got £100 a month for 2.5 years. I put all of the money in an account. I didn't spend it, which is another really important part of being an investor, is not spending it. And I put all of that money in an account for 2.5 years, and then I sold the parking space for £15,000. So I had 2.5 years of rent plus capital gains. Capital gains on a parking space, is it your primary residence? I was renting at the time, so I claimed it was. So I didn't pay capital gains on it.
Yeah.
And that gave me my deposit for the first property in London.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's an unusual way of getting the money to get started. And I think for a lot of people starting out in property, they think, I don't have £250,000 for a deposit for £1 million house. How am I going to start? It's a bit like, well, start what you can. Do what you can, make the money, and then invest it, and then invest that, and then invest that, and so on.
I think being around, it seems like, being around property, being brought up, it was 5 to 13 to 19, in and around practical situations, coupling that together with, the need, desire, want, to make some profit, make some money, it kind of sort of starts to build a story, doesn't it? About, I can kind of see how you've got to that point, because it sort of works together, doesn't it? Okay, so that's it. You got property early on, the principles of it, and working hard and making these things happen. And talk to me about your kind of next stages. So you've started well, on the property journey, but you're still young.
Yeah. So my property journey has been very long, admittedly, and most of it's been quite slow burn. So after that, once I got that deposit and I was able to buy somewhere in London, I bought a place that was a bit run down. I refurbished it. I lived there for a few years, and I had to move on. So I happened to get made redundant. My wife got made redundant about 6 days later.
Right.
And so our companies that gave us a small amount of money, and they've said, go away, don't come back to work. And so we said, what are we going to do? And we twiddled our thumbs for about a week. And then we got a phone call from somebody, a friend of ours, who happened to live in Melbourne at the time. And she phoned up, she spoke to my wife, and she said, the job that we do, fashion buyers in London, we are miles ahead of the industry in Australia. They are crying out for people like us. Would you like to Melbourne? That's quite a big question.
Big ask.
My wife put her hand over the phone. This was before mobiles. So she put her hand over the phone and she said to me, do you want to move to Melbourne? And I said, yeah. And she said, yeah, okay. Yeah, we'll come over. So 3 weeks later, we were living in Melbourne.
How old were you at that point?
Late 20s, probably, yeah.
Wow, okay. What an opportunity.
So then the property I bought in London was amazing. It was the best place to live ever. It was a loft apartment in Islington in a Grade 2 listed building with a gym, sauna, steam room, communal gardens, and a 24-hour concierge. That is like my perfect rental. Yeah. So we rented it out, moved to Melbourne. We lived there for about 1.5 years. And then we came back. We said, well, actually, do we want to move back to that flat? It's all rented out. It's a perfect flat. And this is before I really knew any property investment strategies. My strategy at that time was to have very, very expensive flats in central London, where you needed two people who were a couple working in good professional jobs, so they could afford the rent. But the flat's not big enough to have a party, so they won't trash it. That was my strategy.
That was it.
That was it.
Yeah.
So that flat had been rented out for a couple of years. I moved to Westminster. Yeah. Got a job in another ad agency. And I said, okay, so that flat's let. So let's, get the next one. So I went to the estate agent, and now I'm educated in property. I know that it's called a motivated seller, but at the time I didn't know that. I just went to the estate agent and I said, "Show me the flat that you can't sell." And they took me to a few flats, and I went into one of them. It was the whole kitchen was covered in grease. The bathroom was covered in soap and hair. It was disgusting. There were tiles missing, and the lady had lived there for a decade and never cleaned. So above all of the radiators, there were big black swirls like fire damage. However, it's behind Oxford Circus, and it looks into the third floor of Saatchi & Saatchi. It is a prime location, and that was in 2001. And I said to this agent, "Okay, no one's going to buy this flat. What's the situation with the buyer, with the seller rather?" And he said, "She's bought another flat, and the sale's fallen through. So at the moment, she's paying 2 mortgages."
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, I can help. I can help you out of that. I can help everyone here. However, this was 20 years ago. I can't pay 300 grand for it. I'll give you 210.
Okay.
The estate agent said, I can't offer 210. That's an insult. And I said, "That's what I'm offering. So make the offer." And he said, "Okay, well, okay." And he phoned her, and she said no, rightly so. And I said, "Okay, so I've got 2 weeks. If she changes her mind, I can do 210,000. And I walked away. And 3 days later, they phoned up and said, "Yeah, they've accepted 210."
200. So we're not even counter offered. Just you made your offer, stood by it, walked away. And it came back.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, they talk about don't make an offer unless you're embarrassed. And were you embarrassed, or were you quite cool about that? That was fine.
I helped her out. She's paid 2 mortgages.
You did? Yeah. Got her out of the situation.
It's got to win for everybody. If it doesn't win for her, she wouldn't have accepted it. So
true. Yeah.
So I did that flat up. So at the time I worked, I was working in advertising agencies. At the time I moved on from Saatchi & Saatchi. I worked for a company called Mediacom, and I was working on blue chip clients, people like Mars, Findus, and lots of different finance companies, Royal Bank of Scotland and stuff. I was the only person in the agency that left, went home, and was tiling. So not only was I having a career, I was doing the work as well. So I knew if I did the work, I could make the money. So I would work 70 hours a week in an agency, 25 hours on property, and then the rest of the time I went out and had fun.
I think that's a common theme as well. I hear that it does take a lot of work and commitment and hours. You've got to put yourself in a position to be lucky, or to have the things that you want. But it does take work.
I think luck is a really good word, because when you talk to entrepreneurs, they don't say lucky. So people have said to me, "You're so lucky. You live in the West End." And I'm like, "No, I went to an estate agent. I put my money down, and there was no luck involved. It was all deliberate." People say, "You're so lucky. You've got this property portfolio." You're like, "It's taken 30 years."
Yeah.
30 years it's taken.
Yeah.
I'm in my 50s. I'm lugging washing machines around. There's no luck involved. It's hard work and determination.
No,
and I think anyone that wants to be in property needs to realise that it's not some like magic card game. You actually do have to put the effort in. When you're at the beginning, you have to put the hours in, and it's physical and it's hard work.
It's a classic kind of case of like the compounding, isn't it? Because it's slow, it's a little bit quicker, it's still slow, and then only at the end is it kind of do you kind of start to sort of, I think, take the benefit or realise the benefit of it. You don't, it takes a lot of capital, a lot of effort, and but over the long term, it's a pretty good where to put in place to put your energy.
So then we Flats in the West End, tiny flats, refurb. So if you do a tiny flat in the West End 20 years ago, you've got one tiny bathroom, one tiny kitchen, a bedroom, and a tiny living room to refurbish, and you'll make as much money as you would on a 5-bed house outside of London, where you've got to spend $250,000 to get it out to. So it seemed easy and fast and quick, and I could do the work myself. So I did that for a good few years, and then I left the industry. My wife and I quit our careers in our mid-30s and started our own business, and had we bought up a chain of coffee shops. And during that time, we didn't do a lot in property, because having your own business and from scratch is hard work. And then we sold that, and we'd also had a child, so he was at the stage where we needed to get him into school. So we looked around Westminster. Excuse me, the schools in Westminster aren't fantastic, and the private schools are phenomenally expensive, as you can imagine. So we moved out of London, moved to the countryside. My ambition was to build my own home. And I'd done it as a child for my uncle, but I actually wanted to build my own home. Grand design stuff thing. And my wife said, no, we're not living in a caravan for 2 years. So I couldn't do that. So I did the next step down. I bought a 16th century grade 2 listed Tudor house. I have to say this very carefully, a Tudor hall house. So that's a house based around a hall. It's not a whore house. And restored it myself.
I mean, to be pretty brave to do that.
However,
I don't think many people would go for that one.
No. My dad had a grade 2 listed Tudor house, so I was kind of familiar with the basics of it. He'd done a bit of work on it, and I'd helped him and stuff. So, but yeah, that was very challenging. Very. The regulations are incredibly complicated. So I did that. However, me as an ad man, my wife was a fashion buyer living in the West End, moving to the countryside, living in an old house. That doesn't work. So unfortunately, we divorced. So at that time, I had a marketing agency. We got divorced. She went off. I finished the house, sold the house, but my mental health plummeted. I didn't see it coming. We've been together 30 years. Everything went wrong. The company I owned at the time, I messed up everything, and went into liquidation. And HMRC came after me and basically took all my money. Not all of it, but the vast majority of it. So I was in semi-retirement, and HMRC, the divorce and HMRC took the money. So then I'm in a really difficult situation. You know, I don't have the money to retire on. I'm 50. I've not got that long before I need to retire. And what am I going to do? And I don't know. So after a few months, I joined a meetup group, which is an online social meetup thing. And I found a group. I said, I'm not going to live in the countryside. I need to live a bit more urban. And the closest urban place I could get to and still get to my son's school was St Albans. And I don't know anyone there. So I joined this group called St Albans Sociables That Like Beer, Wine and Cocktails.
Catchy title.
That's my group for me. So I joined this group, and I've never done anything like that before, but I just want to meet some people. Turn up on the first night, and I stand there, and I'm very awkward, and I'm like, next to a guy called Richard Evans. He's on his first meetup. He's also divorced. And we became friends, and through meetup we became very good friends. And then he launched a he launched Vavavoom, which is a company that supplies virtual assistants to property investors and property companies.
Yeah.
And we're away. I think we were in Brighton in a hotel somewhere, and we're having breakfast. And he said, "So you work in marketing? What do you think of this? This is my new company. This is our branding. What do you think of it?" I said, "That's rubbish."
How many seconds did it
Didn't
take?
go down well.
So no, it didn't break it any gentler than that, no.
Yeah, and so I worked with him to rebrand Vavavoom as it is now.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that process, we've got all these property people that we supply VAs for.
Yeah.
And quite often they say, "I was an individual, but now I feel like a company, so I need a name, a brand, and business cards and everything. What do you think about setting up a marketing agency for property people?" And I said, "Yeah." And from where I'm at the bottom, I've bottomed out. I'm thinking, yeah, actually, that's a way out. I can make some money. I can, read life. Yeah. So then he says, "Okay, but we're doing property, so you need to know about property. So you need to go on the courses. You need to learn." So I did Property CEO. I did.
Did you? Okay.
Co-Living Revolution.
Okay.
I'm on, third year of Property Entrepreneur.
Oh, are you? Okay.
A Property Entrepreneur is the one.
Really?
Fantastic.
Really?
So I went on all the courses. I read all the books, Property Magic and all that stuff. I did Property Magic Live, Property Magic Foundation, I think it was, with Simon Zucchi. So I went on all these courses to learn about the strategies that my clients were implementing.
Yeah.
And I came back and I said to Richard, I don't actually need to know about these strategies. I need to do them. Yeah. So the education in property for my marketing agency actually made me into a better property investor.
Yeah. Yeah.
So almost accidentally, I learned about how to be a more advanced property investor.
It's almost like an accidental property investor.
I've been doing it for 25 years.
Yeah. When was the last time you employed? I'm sort of going back to that story, and that is some time ago. But the things that sort of spark your interest since then have been businesses, again, more entrepreneurial stuff, whether it's your marketing agency or whether it's, working with Richard, or whether it's even more different types of property investment. It seems to be a common theme. There was a period of employment in your history and your career, but really doesn't seem to be much about that anymore.
No. So I worked from the late 90s until 2007. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't work for very long, to be honest.
No, I mean, in the scheme of things,
not property, but my entrepreneurial career started.
Yeah.
And I find that's quite common when I talk to property investors. They were doing stuff when they were young. So my family were really poor. And at school, I was in the playground. I looked and I went, he's got 10p in his pocket. He's got 50p in his pocket. How do I get that money out of their pockets and into my pocket?
Okay.
That was my thought process.
Okay.
They've got cash. How do I get the cash into my pocket?
Yeah.
And I watched a program called Why Don't You Stop Watching TV and Do Something More Interesting Instead, which is a good title for a TV program. And I did what they did. So I went around the playground. I picked up the crisp bags that the kids had dropped on the playground, took them home, got a hole punch, put a hole in the corner of it, put it on a baking sheet, stuck it in the oven for 20 minutes, and it shrunk to about that size. Yeah. And then I sold them back to the kids that had dropped them as key rings.
Okay.
And so they were paying me 20p, 50p or whatever it was for the crisp bag that they dropped on the floor. And that was when I realized you could make money, not earn it. You can earn money by going to work, but you can make money by doing other stuff.
Yeah.
And property.
So, I mean, just going back to your career. So I think a lot of the people's aspirations tends to be, how can I get out of my job? Replace my income, get out of my job. So how did you sort of balance, during the time that you were working in a career? How do you balance the 9 to 5 or whatever it was, 6 to 8 with your property investment or your entrepreneurial stuff? How do you kind of match those two up and balance those out?
The shortest answer is ADHD.
Okay, yeah.
So if I'm fortunate, I'm on the spectrum and I have ADHD, which means that I'm ultra focused and I don't stop. I just keep going.
Yeah.
So I could do 70 hours a week at work in my 20s and 30s. I don't know anyone that works harder than me at my age. Mm-hmm. And I just don't stop. I just keep going. Mm. And one of the things that motivates me, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs do it, is having a vision board.
Okay, talk to me about
that. So I've got a vision board. I'm on my second one.
Yeah.
So the first one I did when I was 25, and it's a piece of paper and it's got pictures on it of everything I want out of life.
Yeah.
But it's not monetary. It's what do you actually want out of life? So loads of people say they want money, but then when you say, well, you've got the money, what do you actually want to do? So travel, family, cooking's a big part of my life. So I want to be a really good cook. And I put all of those things on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
And tacked it to the inside of a kitchen cupboard. So every day or two, I open the kitchen cupboard and I go, that's what I want out of life. And then you go, okay, to get that, you need to do this today, tomorrow, next month, next year. And so that gave me some focus. And then after I got divorced, that vision board kind of became redundant. So I ticked off, I'd had it for 25 years. I ticked off everything on that board, apart from one thing, which was a mistake, to be honest, because it was a monetary thing. When I did it when I was 25, I wanted a Ferrari. Mm-hmm. So roll forward 20 years, and I had an account called the Ferrari Fund to buy the Ferrari, but my son was 5, and I thought, actually, do you know what? I don't really want a Ferrari anymore. It's not really. I'm not going to get any great pleasure out of it. It's just going to be really expensive. And so he went to private school. But having that vision board and saving for the Ferrari meant that my son could go to private school. Mm-hmm. Even though you set your goals, they might change, but you're going in the right direction. Mm-hmm. So think about your future, think about where you want to be, work out how to get there, and then it's like a journey. It's like a car journey. You decide you're going to Edinburgh, and you get 3/4 of the way there, and somebody says, actually, you want to go to Inverness. That's a really good place. You go, okay, well, I'm nearly there. Mm.
I think that's true, isn't it? I think that knowing what direction, or at least have broad direction you want to go in, is kind of super helpful. I think. So what I kind of like to ask people is, how much do you want and by when? So even just thinking what that is, what is that number, and when do you want it by? Because I remember the moment I was asked that question. I kind of said, what do you want? Well, more money, like everyone kind of says. Well, how much? Well, I don't know, some more. But I was forced to put a number on it. And then I was forced to put a date on it. Because those two things I had to do, I was in that space then. I had to do that somehow. It wasn't almost conscious. It was like, well, cool. I was like a little bunny. I had to get, all right, I'll do that then. And so it made it easier, I think, if you put a number on it and a date on it, like you've done. Because you know in which direction you're pedaling. Yeah.
And the other thing I found surprising is when I put a date and a number on it, it was sooner and less money than I thought. So actually, it's like, how much money do you need? And you go, I want £100 million. You go, do I? You go, actually, I just, I want to not work.
Yeah.
I want an allotment.
Yeah, totally.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
So I think if you set your expectations a little bit higher than what you'd be happy with, I think that's a really good target. If you set your expectations a million miles away, you're not going to make it. You're going to be disappointed. But think about the lifestyle you actually want to live, not the lifestyle of, a billionaire.
Have you had any mentors, or maybe not official mentors, but people who've either, given you advice that, you've appreciated, or, you've come back to? How important is that? Any relationship like that been to you?
More important than going to school. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
because they don't talk about specific numbers or educating you or something. When you have a mentor, they say, "Well, how do you want to live your life day to day?" I don't want a yacht. God, I don't want a Ferrari anymore. I want a reasonable. I don't even want a big house because it takes too long to clean it, and I don't want a cleaner coming around twice a day interrupting me. I want to live somewhere modest. I want a garden, and I want to go on holiday 3 times a year.
Yeah, that's smashing. I think. Yeah,
so when you break it down to what you actually want, that's really different to younger people in particular. I think their aspirations are. I don't need 20 million pounds. I don't. What would you do with it? It would be a burden. But through property, I can get the income to have the lifestyle that I want. So at the moment, my lifestyle is really actually quite good. I do practical DIY stuff, which I really enjoy. I go out for dinner regularly. I go on holiday, and I've been to the Philippines this year. I'm going to Portugal next month. All good.
Yeah, absolutely. What strikes me as well is that there's a deliberateness about it. So you're not going to work and doing that until you maybe redundant or retire. There's a deliberate choice to do something. And I think that's quite empowering.
It is, yeah. So when it is, and also when I'm rude about it, I look at other people and I go, you go to work, you go home, you wait at home to go back to work so that you can retire and die.
I like that. You wait at home until your next day.
So living, particularly in the countryside, when I lived in the countryside, people would get home at Friday evening.
Yeah.
They'd close the front door and they'd wait until Monday morning and they'd go back to work. They didn't actually do anything. And it's a bit like, why? What is your life about? So theatres, restaurants, museums, concerts. I go to Ronnie Scott's regularly. That's what my life is. The property stuff is hard work, but that's what gives me the lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then I look at a lot of people and I go, you're just waiting to retire so that you can die, which is a very rude way of saying it. But I feel like a lot of people don't really have a life.
Yeah. Is there anything you want to explore in the next sort of few minutes about your virtual marketing team? Because it seems like it's, again, another choice to pursue that particular type of business. And it seems like it's got other motivations than just having a business. What are the motivations? Why get involved in that? Why start that?
That's an excellent question. Yeah. So your virtual marketing team, we do branding and marketing for property investors and property companies. And there's 2 reasons to that. One is that I want to help other people be successful, and marketing is the way of doing that. The other reason, which is more selfish maybe, is that I want to know about your business. I'm in property. I want to know what you do. I want to know how you make money. So when clients come to me, they say, this is what we do. I want investors or landlords or whatever it might be. I go, what do you do? Explain what you do. And they teach me, my clients teach me about property.
Yeah.
So I find it a really useful tool to learn, but also to give back at the same time. So
it's a really privileged position to be in, isn't it?
Yeah. So if we've got clients who are property portfolio owners and letting agents and refurbishment companies and builders, and it's a bit like, how much am I learning about property? So working in this industry in marketing is really useful because you learn about everything. So your virtual marketing team's been great for that reason. And having learned,
after you,
having learned all of that, I apply it. So the property I'm in at the moment, I've been here for a couple of weeks. It sleeps 12 people, and it goes on the market on Monday for serviced accommodation.
Okay.
I didn't know about serviced accommodation 5 years ago. I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah. So again, it's another angle, isn't it, on the property or the entrepreneurial bit. Where do you see the sort of your virtual marketing team particularly going, and how much actually? I'm quite interested to know how much time, how big a part of your life is it? Because it seems like it's clearly a part of it, but it fits into your life as you probably want it to, from what I'm gathering.
Yeah. So it's so as I mentioned earlier, I'm on Property Entrepreneur, and one of the things they teach you is life by design. So you design your own life.
Right.
What do you actually want to do? And I say that all the time. What is it you actually want? And what do you actually do? And they say, what do you want to do? So what I don't want to do is get up and commute. So I get up and I do 10,000 steps and I meditate and I do whatever I do. I don't start work till 10.
Okay.
I don't work after 4.
Okay.
Most of that is your virtual marketing team, but not all of it. I do other stuff. I don't work weekends. I have 6 weeks off a year. I decide what I want out of life, and then I work out how to get it.
Okay.
So I happen to work in marketing, but whatever your business is, if you're working in property as a letting agent or something, you can say, okay, well, I own the agency. I just need to employ another person, and then I can go home a day early every week. I can only work 3 days a week, maybe. So when I had my coffee shop business, I worked 3 days a week, because I didn't want to work 5 days a week. I didn't want to.
So this is quite bold and thinking. And if people are listening and thinking, well, how do I can hear you, I can hear what you say. How do I even start answering those questions about what do I want, how do I achieve it? Is it as simple as just write it down, or is there a better, more structured way to do it? Or
I think it's different for different people. But for me, it was, what do I want to do? So when I left corporate and started my own business, it was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, my wife and I talked about it for months and months and months. And then one day we were stood by the bookcase, and 1/3 of the bookcase is finance books that I use for working on finance clients, and 2/3 of them were food books, so recipes, cookbooks and stuff. And we kind of went, do you know what? That's what we do. We do money and we do food. So let's launch a food business. So it was a bit like Pret, like a really gourmet upmarket version of Pret. I call it a coffee shop because the shortcut way of saying it. And we nailed it because we knew what we were doing. It was our passion. So I would say to anybody, if you are interested in property, as I am, I will change the skirting board. I like it. I enjoy that. Do that. If you're interested in something else, retail or fashion or whatever it might be, do what you're passionate about, because you do a really good job. You do a much better job. Yes. So I'm here today in this house. This is not where I live. And after this, I'm going to be painting the ceiling, and I'm going to be finishing the property off, and I'm going to go home feeling like I've actually done something and achieved something today. Yeah,
created something, and on your terms, which is I think the important bit. Well, I've learned a lot, Ben. Thank you very much for chatting. It's it takes time, I think, to understand kind of what makes people tick and what they're about, I think, and I'm sort of starting to get a sense of that. So thank you for sharing it.
So then I've been through the education and everything, and Richard and I went through every property strategy.
Mm.
And we settled on co-living, which is HMOs, but for trendy young people. Because when I had the coffee shops, I couldn't work in the shop. There was too many people there. So I went to co-living spaces that would have been in,
I see,
about 2010 probably.
Yeah.
So I lived in co-living spaces, in co-working spaces. That was my day-to-day. So when co-working, sorry, I'm getting confused. So I did co-living. When co-working came across, I was a bit like, I get this totally.
Yeah.
I completely get it. I understand the environment, how the people work, who they are. And so we do co-living now. Yeah.
Yeah. No, smashing. That's fantastic. What? So I guess maybe some sort of parting thoughts and comments about where we've gone to, and like, and so just for the listeners, what you might want them to take away from the last sort of 40 odd minutes of. I think I know what I'm taking away from it. I'll tell you my taking in a minute. But what's your kind of your last message really to people listening who are kind of interested, partly in the property thing, but partly wealth creation and all that stuff?
I would say there's two things. One is decide what you want out of life and work out how to get it.
Yeah. And
secondly is, what do you really love? And if you can match those two things together, you'll get there.
Well, that's that's distilled it really well. Yeah. That was kind of what I was going. Yeah.
Messages. That's what I do. Yeah. So if you can work out what you want out of life, be realistic. You don't have to own Chelsea. Decide what you want, work out how to get it through something that you love doing. You will never work. All you will do is your hobby for your whole life. All I do is my hobby. I don't work. I don't work it.
So you don't have Monday morning blues?
I don't even know what day it is.
I think it's Friday today.
but it doesn't matter what day it is, because
that's a telltale sign, isn't it?
I'm not an employee, so it doesn't matter if it's Monday or Sunday. I'm doing my life.
Yeah,
it's my life. It's not my separate work life. It's my life. Yeah. So I'll be here tomorrow. It'll be Saturday. I'll be in this property again. I'll be doing some stuff here because I don't have weekends. Because I don't have work.
Yeah, it's not regimented or defined like that. That's smashing. No. I think there's a lot of takeaways there.
Yeah, design your life. Decide what you want out of. Decide how you want to live and work out how to live like that. Yeah.
I'm wondering if there's a separate business there, Ben, because your virtual marketing team does what it does and it helps property people, and you learn from it and you help people as well. I wonder if there's another depth to it, to be honest.
Well, there could be. I'm not a life coach, so I don't know that I could do that.
No, that's interesting. Well, I think we'll leave it hanging there if that's okay. There's a lot to think on.
Okay. So last thing I'm going to say, for anyone that's listening, it's up to you.
Right.
There's all these people around you. They tell you you can't do it. They tell you can do it. They tell you you're stupid. They tell you whatever. You don't have a degree. You don't have an education. Ignore all of them. Just get on with your life.
That's a nice soundbite, I think, to end on. Thank you very much, Ben. I'm just going to wrap it up there, and then and we'll go from there. So thank you very much for chatting. Really appreciate your insight and your openness there. Thank you for watching this episode of Your Property Business. And if you're getting value from this episode or this interview, please do show your appreciation by hitting the subscribe button and follow the podcast. My name is Chris Jones, and this has been an episode of Your Property Business. I look forward to seeing you next time.